Scott for another question.
Thanks, Wolf. Senator Dodd, gas prices are at record high levels. Granted, staters are frustrated. Americans are frustrated. What would you do to reduce gas prices?
Well, this is a major crisis issue, obviously. Energy-related problems, obviously, are problems with global warming, the dependency on the Middle East for so much of our energy supplies. It's a national security issue. It's a health care issue. The problems are profound here and require some very strong answers. I also think this issue provides incredible opportunities for us to grapple with and deal with here, if we have the kind of strong leadership in the country. I believe we can make a difference here on reducing our dependency on those sources of energy while simultaneously rolling back the problems of global warming. Today we have the solar polar caps rather melting. We have greenhouse gases that are accumulating at record levels way beyond expectations. We really have the dual responsibility here of reducing the polluting effects of depending upon fossil fuels and also allowing us to develop the alternative technologies that would allow us to move beyond this issue. I've introduced a plan here that would require, by the year 2017, 50 miles per gallon standard for our automobiles. I believe that can be done. Well, we ought to do it immediately, in my view, and a carbon tax, in my view, so that you would make these polluting dependencies to polluting fuels more expensive and encourage them through the use of revenues collected to move aggressively on developing the alternative technologies of solar and wind and other sources of energy we could use.
Thank you, Senator. But the question is, what would you do right now to reduce the price of gasoline?
Well, what we've offered already, in fact, and that is, of course, we ought to be saying here that when the price of a barrel of oil gets beyond $40 a barrel, when there's plenty of profit here, that those dollars ought to be returned to the consumers in a rebate or plowed back into the research that would allow us to develop alternative technologies. But the real way to get away from this here, our dependency on that kind of fuel is causing us serious problems across the board. So it isn't just a price of fuel issue here, it's also depending upon polluting technologies that are going to cost us so much.
Senator Gravel?
Yeah, well, I join him on the carbon tax, and of course that will raise the price of gasoline. Let's be candid about that. There's nothing I would do as president to lower the price of gasoline right now. We Americans have to grow up. If we want to get off of the dependency in the Middle East, we have to own up to the problem. These things cost money. They're controlling our society. And the sooner we stop fighting these wars, here, stop and think. You only see $3. Just watch those wheels turn. There's another $4, which is what we spend to keep American troops around the world to keep the price. So you're paying more than $7 a gallon. You just don't know it.
Senator Edwards?
Well, the first thing we've got to do is find out what's happening with these oil and gas companies, because we know they're making record amounts of money. We know that the same people that are refining the oil are selling it at the gas pump. So there's a huge vertical integration in this operation. I think there ought to be an investigation of the oil and gas companies by the Justice Department. I think if the laws that presently exist don't deal with this problem and price manipulation, there should be some change in the antitrust laws. I think we need states to enforce clean air laws against these refineries. And then I guess last but not least, in the short term, Chris is exactly right about the things we need to be doing in the long term. But in the short term, can America finally stop spending $3 billion a year of taxpayers' money subsidizing oil and gas companies that already make billions of dollars? That's what we ought to be doing.
Governor Richardson, you're a former Secretary of Energy. Are the oil companies, the big oil companies, engaged in price gouging of the American consumer?
Well, I was Energy Secretary. In my state, we call it the clean energy state. We have incentives for solar, wind, biomass, biofuels. We require renewable technologies, 20% of our electricity. Here's my answer. What would help in the short term, give us, the states, the authority to engage in serious price gouging investigation. That doesn't happen. But this is not the answer. The answer.
Do you believe they are?
No, they're not. The answer is this. We need an Apollo program, Apollo, led by a president, asking every American to sacrifice, to conserve, that would reduce our dependence on foreign oil, which is 65% imported, to 10%. I have the most aggressive plan according to the League of Conservation Voters. Right. It would go to 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by the year 2040. But it takes
Governor,
an effort by every American.
I'm going to let Senator Biden weigh in as well. What would you do specifically, Senator Biden, give it to us briefly, to reduce, if you want to reduce, the price of gasoline in the United States?
Take away the subsidy, which I've introduced legislation to do. It's about $6 billion, 2.7 directly to the oil companies, number one. Number two, investigate, as a President of the United States, use the Justice Department to go in and investigate this whole issue of price gouging. Number three, though, we have to do what we all said here, but first and foremost, significantly raise the mileage automobiles get and mandate it.
All right, I want everybody to stand by because we're only getting started. We're going to continue all of this.